What's up, guys? I'm Chris Spags here, back to another Four Corners video breaking down tonight's NBA slate, courtesy of Osmo.com. Before we get started, make sure to like this video and leave a comment down below. Tell me what game tonight is your favorite on the slate. If you do that, you'll be entered to win a 1-year all-access pass to Osmo.com. We're giving that away as part of an anniversary promotion because it's our first year of existence here on the internet, and that's coming up on Friday. So if you like this video and leave a comment down below, you'll be entered to win that all-access pass for 1 year, a $700 value. So do that right now, and I'll give you some more details at the end, I guess. But right now, just do that, get it out of the way, and let's get to the content. First game I want to talk about here is one with the Cavaliers and the Knicks, a game with a 209 combined total, which is pretty low, but it does represent a 2.7 point boost for the Cavs. And two Cavs have been the biggest beneficiaries of their rotation changes since trading a few guys out of town. Jordan Clarkson and Larry Nance are projected to be two of the highest owned guys on the slate. Right now, Clarkson and Nance project for 28% and 36% ownership, respectively. That makes them the two highest owned guys on the slate, as I mentioned. They've been both above 30 minutes since the rotational changes, so I feel good about this, but obviously it is a bit of a risk given that it's the Cavs going against a spot with the Knicks. Two teams who are not good. The total's not great, so there is some risk there, but overall, I'm comfortable with matching the field, and I think you probably should be too. Colin Sexton has been another big beneficiary of the usage left behind from some of the moves with the Cavs roster. He's been over 30% usage more often than not in his recent few games. He's also lesser owned than the other pieces here. People just have a hard time trusting Colin Sexton given his points dependence. He's shown a little bit more rebounding and assist upside recently as well as some steals. He's not a bad play. He's at a very reasonable price on all the sites industry-wide. So I don't mind Colin Sexton here, and I think he could be a guy, if you add him in with Clarkson and Nance, could differentiate your lineup without taking much off the table. Marquise Chris has also been a big beneficiary since joining the Cavs roster. He's been at about 24 minutes per game in his first two since getting on board here. Picked up a start last time with Kevin Love sidelined after joining the rotation again and only playing 6 minutes. Kevin Love gaining some more minutes here could be a bit of a risk, but with the fact that Marquise Chris is getting 16% projected ownership right now, I think it's worth having some exposure to him. He's a very nice value play and at the minimum price on DraftKings. On the Knicks side, the biggest beneficiary of their trade moves has been Dennis Smith Jr., getting a ton of run recently, and he also projects to be the third highest owned guy on the slate here. So you're going to want to have him in some lineups. I think especially if you're loading up on Clarkson and Nance, you're going to want to have him on the other side because he's the Knick who's most likely to take advantage of the opportunity versus the Cavaliers. He's getting a ton of usage, a good amount of minutes, and there isn't a point guard who's going to steal the minutes away like was the case for some of the Knicks who were performing well in fantasy earlier this year, like Emmanuel Mudiay and Trey Burke. Kevin Knox is another guy who's going to pick up some interest today, and he's been over 35 minutes in 6 out of his last 7 games. He's a points-dependent scorer, but he's shooting over 20 times a game in a few of those opportunities he's had recently. I like Kevin Knox today. I think he's a strong enough play. At $5,000 on DraftKings, that's pretty reasonable, and he could have some upside here. Given how weak defensively the Cavs are, they're going to give up some easy shots, and Knox is a guy who's shooting enough where easy shots would help him out quite a bit. DeAndre Jordan's the last Knick I feel comfortable trusting here. He's at a pretty reasonable price, and even though Mitchell Robinson has been coming for his minutes a bit, Jordan's been at about 28 minutes per game, which is fine enough here versus the Cavs team who's weaker inside without Tristan Thompson. Jordan could see some of the rebounds here trickle up because of the Cavs being such a poor shooting team overall. I like Jordan in the spot. I think his minutes are pretty secure, and Mitchell Robinson also not a terrible play. He's been doing really well in short runs so far, and I think if he gets the run here, he could be good as well. Next corner I want to hit on is a game with the Wizards visiting the Pistons, one that has a 223 point total, which represents a 7.8 point boost for Detroit on their season average. Andre Drummond is the first guy I want to look at on the Pistons side. He's been over 48.75 fantasy points in 6 out of his last 7 games, and that includes a high of 66 versus the Knicks last game. So versus a team with like the Wizards who has nobody who is a big of consequence available for them, I don't see how you keep Drummond off the boards. I think the only thing that is a risk here for him is the fact the pace could be a little bit much for him running up and down the court, and it does hurt him sometimes with him unable to get in a position in a way that helps him with rebounding and putbacks. Blake Griffin underperformed last time out, but he looks like a pretty good matchup here versus Wizards given the pace, and I also don't see any issue with playing him alongside Andre Drummond here given the team total and the fact that I do think this game has a pretty decent shot of staying close with the Wizards looking pretty competitive lately and the Pistons not being any great shakes on their own. Wayne Ellington signed with the Pistons and he's expected to start now, so it's unclear how he's going to affect things. My best guess would be that he's going to take some of those remaining shots that Reggie Bullock leaves behind. I think Langston Galloway as well picked up some of those. Luke Kennard picked up some of those last game out. I think those are probably mostly going to go to Wayne Ellington now. I think you could also see him maybe take a little bit more away from Reggie Jackson, who's been on a pretty good run as well. Overall, Wayne Ellington interests me quite a bit as a play, especially if he's going to be under 5% ownership. He can really bomb from deep. This is a Wizards team who will give up a lot of threes at pace. Tomas Satoransky is out, and Jeff Green is currently questionable as of the time of recording this video on the West Coast midday. So there is some opportunity here with Chase and Randall moving into the starting lineup, at the very least with Satoransky out. Jeff Green's availability is also a crucial one to watch here because Jabari Parker could end up picking up a start if Green is sidelined. So So keep your eyes peeled for news there. I think either way, Chasson Randle is probably a decent punt play, one that's not going to give you a ton of upside. He's averaging just 0.77 fantasy points per minute this year. That could go up a little bit because of Satoransky's absence, but I don't know if it's enough to really want to lock him in. He's an okay punt play at value, but not one to load up on. But I do think Jabari Parker is a really interesting play if he does pick up a start. He's a fine play even if he doesn't, but if he picks up that start, you're going to see probably 30 plus minutes, maybe 35 minutes for him, and that could be really beneficial for him in a spot like this versus the Pistons. Bobby Portis is the last guy in the Wizards I think is really worth hitting on. I think Bradley Beal, Trevor Ariza are fine, but their prices are where their prices are. There's not a ton of upside there because they're at their price ceilings from where I sit, but Bobby Portis still has shown some additional upside where his price could be up a little bit more, and I think getting in now makes sense. He's been about 28 minutes per game. He looks good. The usage is steady. I think if Jabari Parker is a starter, I think that's going to help him out quite a bit as well because Portis should see more usage and some more rebounding upside with Parker off the floor. But overall, Bobby Portis looks good to me. Parker looks good to me. The peripheral pieces overall for Washington are more appealing to me than the main guys. The third corner I would hit on today is a game with the Clippers visiting the Wolves, one that has a 230 combined total, which is highest on the slate, and it represents a 5.6 point boost for Minnesota on their season average. The first guy you want to look at on the Wolves side is obviously Karl-Anthony Towns, and really, who's going to stop him on the Clippers side? Ivica Zubac joined the starting lineup for the Clippers last game. He only saw 23 minutes and was pretty effective, so he looks like a decent play on his own, but he wasn't part of that closing group, so you know you're going to see a lot of time versus Towns, or rather with Towns versus a guy like Montrezl Harrell, who's going to be really undersized and going to be able to be beaten in a variety of ways by Towns, including stretching him deep. I like the match for Towns quite a bit. I think he's one of the stronger plays on the slate, and with where his ownership is, about a quarter of the field expected to own him right now, I'd want to get close to that because I think Towns could have a monster day here versus the Clippers team who's really not well equipped to handle him. Jeff Teague is listed as probable right now, and after practicing fully yesterday, it seems like he should get more minutes than the just over 20 that he got in his return to the lineup. But the question to me is how that's going to affect the usage and the opportunity for some of these guys, in particular Andrew Wiggins. Wiggins himself is currently questionable with an illness, but assuming he's ruled in, then you're going to see Wiggins getting less shots. His usage rate's probably going to come down a little lower because of Teague having the ball in his hands a bit more often, but you could see more efficiency from Wiggins. Wiggins was over 50% shooting with that return of Teague for just a second time in the last 10 games. So I think Wiggins is going to benefit some from Teague from an efficiency standpoint, but his overall opportunity is going to fall a little bit just because Teague is going to have the ball more, and that's going to hurt Wiggins. Also, the return of Derrick Rose is one to watch. I think it might be a little tight for Wiggins regardless because Rose being back, taking some usage off the table, Teague being back, taking some usage off the table. It's going to be tough for Wiggins to hit value here, so I'm a little more comfortable with Towns and what his role is relative to what Wiggins is with all these guys coming back in, getting more minutes. Danilo Gallinari projects to be the highest owned Clipper at 17% ownership right now, but he really hasn't seen as big of a boost as you might think since Tobias Harris got traded out to Philly. I think the guys who've actually benefited the most have been Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Landry Shamet taking some more of that usage off the table, while Gallinari's role has been pretty comparable to what it was before Harris went out. Danilo Gallinari looks like a fine play, but one who I think is maybe getting more love than he should because of people assuming that he's going to get more time shooting the ball than he actually is. Lou Williams is another guy who I've liked a bit. His usage has been steady, though he has disappointed. He just saw less run getting blown out recently by the Pacers. I think he's going to get more stable minutes moving forward, but overall it's a bit of a risk. I like him though because his usage is steady and he is a pretty decent opportunity given the fact that he's going to be under 10% owned, and he has some massive upside here in a game versus the Wolves, which again, highest total on the slate, and highest total means that Lou Will's usually going to have to help out scoring quite a bit because the Clippers are not a team who has a ton of guys who are going to shoot the ball with great success. And the final corner I want to hit on is a game with the Blazers visiting the Thunder. It's got a 229.5 total, and it does represent the second highest total on the slate. Jeremy Grant being ruled out of the game already is the one big news item for the Thunder, but it's one that really shouldn't affect things too much for how their team lays out. You might see some more minutes a run for Dennis Schroeder. You may see some more minutes, perhaps a start for Patrick Patterson or Abdel Nader, but none of these changes are that material. Schroeder, I think, being a little more interesting helps, but everybody else, I think it's most of the same. You'll probably see some more usage for Paul George and Russell Westbrook, but really, how much more usage can those two even get? Despite that, though, Paul George and Russell Westbrook are always strong plays to me, especially when you think a game is going to be close, and I think this one is one that's going to stay competitive down to the wire. Their prices now are so uncomfortable that I think a lot of people won't stack those guys together. So I think if you think the Trailblazers game stays competitive and there's enough value out there to force lineups in with Westbrook and George, you may end up finding a very different lineup than a lot of players out there. And I think that makes him a very good option for tournaments, especially when run back with a Blazer or two. CJ McCollum is only projected for 1% ownership after having a down game, but his 4 before that were very strong. He's averaged over 41.25 in those 4 out of 5 games and shown some real upside as well. I think this is a pretty good spot for him. And I think if people aren't going to be on him, it might be a spot spot where you're paying up a little more to be contrarian, but getting a guy who's had a pretty decent usage outlay recently and has had a nice string of 30-point games as well. Damian Lillard has much more ownership expected on him at 13%, and he's actually coming off a very big game versus the Thunder last time, 60.75 fantasy points in that last matchup. And actually, both he and CJ McCollum had big days versus the Thunder in that same game. He put up 42.75 fantasy points. So I think there is a shot here where the Blazers may have to score with both McCollum and Lillard to keep up with the Thunder team, who we know is one of the better offenses in the league, playing at a pretty strong pace. So I think if this game does stay close, it actually might not be a bad play to have both Lillard and McCollum in a lineup, even though they do technically take a little bit away from each other. Another thing which might be a contrarian thought, Yusuf Nurkic has actually been pretty good versus Steven Adams this year, and you would think Steven Adams does a great job limiting a center whose style is similar to Nurkic, but Nurkic has actually gone above 40 fantasy points in both games. He's had 40.5 in the first matchup versus the Thunder earlier this year, 47.25 in the second matchup versus the Thunder, and he got 30 and 36 minutes versus them, which I think is what you really want to look for because Nurkic's minutes have been a little bit more fluid recently. He's lost some to Myers Leonard. He's previously lost some to Zach Collins, but I think if we're going to see big minutes for him as the only best, or the only good matchup rather, versus Steven Adams, I think you could see him have a nice day here and one that'll really go under own because his price is at an awkward point and he hasn't been that great recently. So there we go. Those are my thoughts on today's 9-game NBA slate. Make sure to like the video, and as I mentioned, leave a comment down below telling me which game is your favorite on the slate because you'll be entered to win a $700 value of an all-access pass to Awesemo.com. So that's every sport, all the ownership projections, which I reference in this column, as well as the rankings from Awesemo, who's a top player in the world, just come right from his own lineups that he's crunching. You'd also get projections from Josh Engelman, which you just plug right into Fantasy Cruncher, as well as the rankings from Fast Eddie Fear. So all the stuff you need to be good at making basketball lineups is at your fingertips. So just enter the contest right now, and you'll be entered to win that all-access annual pass, which we're giving away on Live Before Lock this Wednesday. It's our anniversary special for us, and it's our way of saying thank you to you guys for supporting us and our growth over the last year at Awesemo.com. Of course, also use the promo code Switch and Hedge for 50% off of your first month. If you can't win one, you might as well pay 50% off for one. It's as good of a deal as you're going to get out there from the DFS industry, so use that promo code Switch and Hedge, get 50% off. And I'll be back again tomorrow with another Four Corners video breaking down all the stuff you need to know, so good luck.